Hi there. I am Melissa Morris, owner and lead consultant at Agency Authority, where we help busy agency owners maximize their team, increase productivity, so ultimately they can increase their profits. Time tracking. Now, this is a hot topic and something I get asked about all the time, and I'm in a lot of conversation about with agency owners. So, there are three things I want you to know about time tracking, and they are the three biggest reasons that you should be using time tracking in your agency. Number one is it's going to save you money. Number two, it will save you money. Number three, you see where I'm going with this. It will save you money. Okay, so how? How is time tracking going to save you money? So much that I said it 3 times. Well, think about this. Are you asking yourself, am I charging enough for my packages? Are you asking yourself things like, how much should I pay that team member, particularly hourly employees or contractors you're looking to bring in? How much should I be paying them? Are you asking yourself, why is everybody so busy? Like, why are all my team members say, oh, I'm really busy, but the bottom line's not showing it, right? Like, where's all the money? Why is everybody so busy? Okay, if you're asking yourself these questions, the answers are in time tracking. The answers are in the data. Okay, so who should be time tracking? Okay, they're really everybody. Okay, all agencies should be time tracking. Okay, and this even goes for agencies that are not time and materials or hourly based. So even agency owners where you're thinking, we're going to build a website, we're going to do it for a flat rate, we're do branding, logo, and we do it flat rate. So we don't need to time track. Yes, you do. You absolutely still need to time track, because the idea of, well, it doesn't really matter how long we take because they played a flat rate. What if you have a team member or a contractor and you've now paid them more than the client has paid you? That matters. That's a big deal. So you really need to understand that time tracking matters, even if you are flat rate or project based. Now, agency owners, your whole team needs a time track, and so do you. Agency owners have to time track their time as well. There is a lot of power in knowing where you're spending your time as well. Oftentimes I've worked with agency owners, and when we start looking at it, we see they're doing work that other team members should be doing. They're spending a lot of time in administrative and down in the weeds doing tasks that they really shouldn't be doing. And this is why they end up saying, I don't have time for biz dev. I don't have time for biz dev. I don't have time to work on the business. It's because they're spending so much time down in the weeds. But until you can really look at a report and look at your time and pull out that data, you just don't know where it's going. So it's really, really difficult. So everybody on your team, all agencies, whether you're time and materials or your flat rate, agency owners themselves should all be time tracking. Okay, so what are the common mistakes that I see when agency owners start implementing time tracking? Well, number one is they expect to see every minute tracked. So for example, if you have an employee and they're 40 hours a week, sometimes the agency owner expects to see 40 hours of time tracked. Well, that's not really realistic. People need to get a sip of water, run to the bathroom. They're switching in between tracking time, right? Maybe I'm going to track for a little bit. I've got to pause. I may take a minute to think about what I'm going to do. So this idea that you're going to see that is not realistic. So you have to find a little bit of balance there and know that it's not going to be perfect. Now, should they only be logging 28 hours or 30 hours? No, but you can start to get a feel for what feels about right. But I would allow for, maybe 30-ish minutes a day of flex time, of course, and we're not counting lunch breaks and such. I mean, just like kind of time that just doesn't seem to get tracked or be allocated towards anything. So just getting really realistic about the amount of time you should see in your time track. Something else that I often see, everything starts getting lumped under admin time. So I have worked with agency owners and they say, Melissa, we've been tracking our time for years. I pull all these reports and I still don't understand. Like I still don't have visibility. I don't know what's going on. I don't know why projects are taking so long. And when we look at them, I start to see a lot of stuff just lumped under admin time. And so it's not surprising that this data doesn't feel useful or helpful or insightful, because if it's all listed as admin, like what are they doing? So really starting to figure out, when I am putting something as admin time and I'm logging it as such in my time tracker, what does that actually mean? And making sure that you've written this down and shared it with your team members as well. And then this is another mistake that I see, and where that line starts to get blurred between administrative time and other time tracking, is actually counting work done for a client as internal or admin or one of these other vague buckets that seems to get allocated towards time spent for the agency. So let me give you an example. You have a designer and a copywriter, and they're going to get together to talk about a project that they're working on. Now they're going to get together for 30 minutes and they're going to talk about one project. Like, they are getting together to discuss how they're going to tackle this particular project. That 30 minutes should not be tracked as internal meeting. It should not be tracked as admin time. It should be tracked to the client that they are discussing, okay? Maybe there's a few minutes where they're going to talk about something else. They may briefly touch on something else they're working on, but if the bulk of that time is about one project, that's where that time gets tracked to, and it's really important you capture that. So if you're time tracking and you're thinking this data is not really helpful, be on the lookout and see if you're making some of these common mistakes, maybe unrealistic about how much time should or is not getting tracked, what's getting tracked, or looking at the data and saying, this isn't helpful. You need to dig a little deeper, and it's time to take a look at how you're tracking and what you're logging your time spent as. So how to get started if you're not time tracking at all. Start. So there are lots of tools out there. Some are very simple, some are very straightforward. You can look at something like Toggl, Harvest, both have really great options, and just start getting going. Okay. So I would start by making a plan of some basic buckets. Client A, client B, client C. This is website work. This is branding work. This is copywriting. This is work for the business. And then go ahead and build as you go. You'll start to see, oh, I'm about to do a task and it doesn't really fit in any of the buckets that I've got in my time tracking tool. This tells you there's an opportunity there to go ahead and add another bucket. Maybe you need to add another item that can be selected so that we know we're accounting for that. As you're reviewing the data, if you're looking at it saying, oh, all this stuff is just lumped under a logo, but I really wish I knew what of this was client meetings about the logo, or maybe what was some preliminary drawings and concepts versus what was really finalizing and doing some final tweaks. You'll start to see. So the point is, though, you have to just get started, and then come back to it, look at your reports, and go from there. And I promise you will be very enlightened, potentially blown away at what you start to uncover. So if you're thinking, time tracking, this is something I need to learn more about, stick with me. So Monday, I am having Marcel Petipus from Parakeeto join me, and he's going to help us talk about how do we get the team on board, right? So maybe you watch this and you're thinking, yep, I'm on board. I need to do some time tracking in the agency, or maybe I've had some failed attempts and we really need to commit as a team. Come join us Monday, 12 p.m. Eastern time. We're going to talk about how do you get your team invested so that they really feel good about time tracking and don't feel like this is a way that they're being micromanaged or spied on, or it just feels like an unnecessary to do. So I promise you're going to learn a ton. So make sure you check it out.